Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show is brought to you by DKI Canada. Across the street, across the country. He was a member of the least famed Hound Line, Russ Courtnall. He was also one of the fastest players in the game. Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show. Coming up! Today was born in Duncan, BC, grew up in Oak Bay. He was a right winger with blazing speed, a former Notre Dame Hound. He played for the Victoria Cougars, where he had 65 goals and 163 points in 92 games. He was drafted in the first round, 7th overall by the Maple Leafs in 1983. He played 19 NHL seasons for the Leafs, Canadiens, Stars, Canucks, Rangers, and Kings. 297 goals, 774 points, in 1,029 games. He is also co-host of the Suspendables podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program, Russ Courtnall. Russ, good to have you here.
Hey, thank you for the introduction. Glad to be here with you guys.
A long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, Russ, growing up in Oak Bay, how did you get interested in hockey?
My dad played hockey, and he was born in Winnipeg, moved to Victoria when he was 14, and was a hell of a hockey player and didn't play for a couple of years because they didn't have an arena, and they built one, and he started playing again when he was 16, and played for the Brandon Wheat Kings. His rights were owned by Detroit, and I think back then the players made $2,200 a year if you made the NHL, and he could make $4,200 a year working in the mill. And he was a diehard Leaf fan. He did not want to play for Detroit. And after he had an injury, and he just never went back. And so that was when we were all in Victoria. We'd moved from Lake Cowichan. My dad worked at the mill in Yubo. We moved down to Victoria, and my mom, who was an athlete, a runner, she said, "You got to get the kids on the ice." And so the rest is history. My dad got us on the ice, and we loved it. And actually, my first team I played for I was like four or 5 years old, and they had a program at Memorial Arena, and it was called the Maple Buds, and they had home and away jerseys, and I played for the Maple Buds. And then I later we went to the Victoria Racquet Club, and I played for Victoria Racquet Club, and then I went to Notre Dame and came back, played for the Victoria Cougars, and then got drafted by Toronto. So that's kind of a quick version of my playing, getting introduced to hockey and how it all happened.
Now, you guys lost your father when you were barely a teenager. Tell us what happened and what kind of impact did his death have on your family?
Well, our dad was an amazing father. He instilled in us his work ethic, and so he introduced us to sports and commitment, and then he got offered a promotion within his company to move to Vancouver, and my mom didn't want to go. And he had worked his entire life to go, and nothing against my mom, but my mom was like, "We're good in Victoria. We don't need to go to Vancouver." He took the job, then had to turn around and turn it down. And after that, he spiraled into depression that lasted about a year. And a lot of things came up in his past from his childhood, and he just sunk into this depression that was just horrible to watch. Your hero, and have him just go from this big, strong person into somebody who was really sick. And he took his life about a year after that, and I was 13. Geoff was 16. My sister Cheryl was 18. My younger brother would have been 11. So, yeah, that was horrible loss, and really sad because we lost our father, but everything he had brought into our lives with sports and he missed out on everything. It was, he wanted to play for the Maple Leafs, and then can you imagine? I got drafted by the Maple Leafs. It was bittersweet to say the least.
Yeah, I have a feeling about some of that stuff, and there's forces at work. You know what I'm saying? That beyond what we can see here in this realm, and I think that it's very call it coincidence if you will, or God incidences if you will, but there's it's the reason that things happen the way they do, and for your family to pull it together and to not only get by, but thrive. I mean, you can talk about the hockey careers of you and Geoff. As you mentioned, 3 years older than you, but both you guys make it to the NHL. But I'm guessing it wasn't long after you lost your father, you ended up at Notre Dame. So tell us about that experience and how that was helpful for you.
Well, that's one of the most incredible things that happened to me was my dad heard about this school, Notre Dame, and two boys from our hometown went to Notre Dame. One was Terry Olson, and then the other person, I can't remember his name, but they went there, and the one kid was a really good athlete, and I don't know if he was in trouble or not, but he came back. He went there and he became the valedictorian captain of the Notre Dame team. And my dad was so impressed with the school, and it was in the prairies. And he always wanted us to experience living in the prairies because he did, and how tough the winters were. And he felt like if you could make it through a Canadian winter in the prairies, you can make it anywhere. And he sent Geoff away at 14 to Pinoca, Alberta, to live with my uncle, my mom's brother, who was a staff sergeant for the RCMP. And my dad passed when I was 13. And the school, you could only go when you're 14. So we're sitting there having dinner, and my dad has passed away, and a phone call, the phone rings in our kitchen. My mom answers it, and it's the president of Notre Dame. And Martin Kenny, and he wanted to have me come to school. My mom's like, no, he's too young, maybe next year. And she hung up. And I said, who was that? And she said, oh, it's the president of Notre Dame. They want you to come play there, but you're too young. About a week later, he called during lunch hour because my mom had to start working. She always stayed at home. And he called at lunch hour, and I picked up the phone, and he said, I want you to come to Notre Dame. So I said I would. And he goes, tell your mom, just write a check for whatever she can afford. And she did. She agreed. When she came home from work, I said, I'm going to Notre Dame. And that Sunday, I was on a plane from Victoria to Regina. And I went to school, played that year. I got talked out of going back because there was going to be this great hockey team in Victoria, which we were good. We weren't great, but we were good. I went to, I'd been, my rights were owned by Medicine Hat Tigers, and Patty Janelle's son and I played in Victoria together when he was the coach there, coaching the Victoria Cougars, so he protected me. I went to their camp, and he was going to send me to Drumheller. I'm 16 years old now, and I'm probably, I don't know how much I weigh, but I wasn't big enough to be playing major junior or even tier 2. And my roommate was Tim Appleby, and he had gone to Notre Dame the year I was there. He was the goalie for the big team that won the Air Canada Cup at Notre Dame that year. And he goes, "You're not going to Drumheller. You're going back to Notre Dame." He called Martin Kenney, put me on the phone, and I was on a bus to Notre Dame, and I played for Barry McKenzie, had a great year, and ended up next year playing in Victoria. They traded my rights to the Victoria Cougars and had a great year playing with my brother Geoff, who was 20-year-old overage, and I got drafted in the first round by Toronto. And what's amazing about those two stories about my dad is that he wanted me to go to Notre Dame. His favorite team was Toronto. I was rated to go 10th. I think the highest I was rated was 10th that year. And by Central Scouting, and I went 7th to Toronto. And so if you believe in, which I do, my dad, he's still here, and he was looking out for me. So it was meant to be. But unfortunately, I didn't get to experience it with him. That would have been amazing through all that I'd been through, having my father, not having my father with me, and then following this unbelievable career with, playing for Canada, the Olympics and the World Juniors, World Championships, Canada Cup, playing for the Leafs, playing for the Habs. I mean, going on and on and on. And then having my brother, Geoff, who wasn't supposed to make it, he made it. Like, I was supposed to make it, he wasn't.
Right.
He started a little later, blah, 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 was small till he was 19 years old, late bloomer, and then became, of our era, one of the better, I don't know if you call him a power forward or what, but he was one of the best left wingers in the league during our era. I mean, he almost scored 400 goals, undrafted, won a Stanley Cup. So for two of his three boys to make it in the NHL was unbelievable.
When you think about the odds of one of your kids making it to the NHL, having two make it, and as you mentioned, Geoff being a late bloomer, that kind of came out of nowhere. We saw you coming, but not so much Geoff.
Right.
You talked about your second year with the Cougars, 29 goals, 37 assists in just 32 games. That's over 2 points a game. You got with the Cougars, and then you're playing for Canada, as you mentioned, the World Juniors and the Olympics. And you were playing in Sarajevo, and we got a nice goal here where you set up Dave Gagne for a goal against Finland. Tell us about that experience.
Well, what a year. I mean, it was an unbelievable year, getting drafted, going back to the team. I knew when I got drafted, they said I was going to go back to juniors. So I went to camp, not expecting anything. I knew I was going back. And then I met Brian Kilray on his scouting trip, and he said, and I'd gone to a camp actually that summer too, to World Junior Camp for Canada. And then he came out on a scouting trip and goes, "We're going to pick you." And then he picked me as the captain. And then I met the assistant coach of the Olympic team, and I'm blanking on his name, and I apologize if he's listening, but he and Dave King said, we're going to watch you during the World Juniors. If you have a good tournament, we want you to come play for the Olympic team. And I was like dumbfounded. I'm like, okay. So I went and I did have personally, I had a good World Juniors, but as a team, we didn't. And then I got the phone call, "Hey, you're coming to the Olympic team." And then went to the Olympics. That was unbelievable, going to Sarajevo. And then having my mom, my stepdad there, my brother were there to watch. And we lost the bronze medal game 2-0 to the Swedes, which was, we're a young team, probably not supposed to win, but thought after 1980, what the Americans did, maybe we were going to have a chance. And I got back to Victoria. We went to Paris after the Olympics for a tournament, which was interesting. but we shouldn't have been there. But Alan Eagleson had basically took a bunch of money for us to go play in some tournament. And I get back to Victoria after that, and phone rings, and it's Toronto Maple Leafs, and they said, we're playing in Vancouver on Sunday or whatever, and you're getting called up. And so I never got to play I don't think I played for Victoria after that, but I might have maybe one game or something, but that was it. And then I turned pro right after the Olympics and played, if you count that year, I played 16 years. And it was an incredible experience, and like a Canadian kid's dream, and now maybe a dream for most hockey players around the world. Back then it was mostly American and Canadian kids, but now it's probably a dream of most kids around the world.
Yeah, they come from Scottsdale, they come from California, They come from all over the place, don't they? So, so you mentioned that the Leafs drafted you. Did you have any inkling at all that they had your number? They were looking at you?
Well, when I was 18 years old, I guess I was 8. I just turned 18. So we're in Montreal. Your agent brings you out because you're going to go in the first round. So all the first rounders are there, and some of the second rounders are there. The agents have brought them in. And then any local hockey player that's from and around Quebec probably was in the stands potentially to get drafted so they could walk down. But back then, we had Bill Waters as an agent, and he brought in probably 5 or 6 of us that he knew were going to be in the top couple rounds. And before the draft, you get there 2 days before the draft, I think, and you do interviews. So it's kind of the last meeting you have. Yeah, you've had some phone meetings or in-person meetings, depending where you played, with scouts. And then the scouts report back to the GMs. Now all the GMs and the scouting staff are there, and they set up these meetings. So I'll never forget meeting Toronto. We were in a Montreal hotel, not in the lobby, maybe on the second floor, and it was in this big wide hallway. And there's all these agents. There are all these men that you think are really old, and they're not, but you're 18 years old. So you think everybody 40 and above is old. But now that I'm almost 60, I realize they weren't that old. And I met Floyd Smith and Vicky Duff, and I met the coach. Assistant coach was Dan Maloney. I met Mike Nicoluk, the head coach, and some others. Oh, I'd met Johnny Bauer. So they're all there. And you can just see, like, now looking back on it, it's like a beehive. They're like talking about you, and because they've got all these names. Who should we take? Who should we take? And they're meeting all these different hockey players, and that's the day before they're going to make the decision. And Jerry McNamara, who's the GM, who just passed away, he said, he goes, there was something in your eyes. He told me that over and over. There was just something in your eyes, and I believed in you, and he took me. And you never know. Like, you just never know in the draft. It's a crapshoot. I mean, that year, the first 3 picks, I mean, it was unbelievable. They took Lawton over, Sylvain Turgeon and Yzerman and Pat LaFontaine. Those were the first 4 picks. Barrasso was 5th. Johnny McLean was 6th. I was 7th. 8th was Dave Gagne or Cam Neely, one of the two. But anyways, it was, and then later in the round, there was some unbelievable picks like Patrick Waugh and Claude Lemieux and Rick Tocchet. And, so it is a crapshoot, but that's what happened.
That was a heck of a draft. Called my name. Unbelievable.
But it's kind of relaxing because you're getting picked. Like if it wasn't, I thought I was going to Vancouver because they picked 9th. Actually, I think Andrew McBain went 8 and Cam Neely went 9. And then, yeah, something like that. Because I always thought I was going to Vancouver because of hometown boy. And Winnipeg didn't interview me. They were looking for a big forward. So they were McBain or Neely or somebody else. But they weren't looking for a small centerman. I think the average height of our first round that year was 5'11", 180 pounds. And we had Norm Lacombe and Adam Creighton in the draft that were huge men, but everybody else was pretty small.
But they brought the average up.
Yeah.
They brought the average up.
And we're all kids still, right? So
yeah. So you gave so the Leafs taking number 7. And you guys had at least had a young team. You got a chance to play, which you might not have got that opportunity with another team, but you got to play on the Hound Line. How did that happen? And how much fun was that for you?
It was one of the better things that happened in my career. Wendell Clark and I played for Notre Dame on the same team. He was a first year midget. I was second. Gary Lehman. When I was 14, Gary Lehman was 15 and he played on the midget team. I was on the Bantam team. So the three of us were never at the school at the same time.
Yeah. And
they had moved Gary up from defense to forward to play with me a little bit. And he was a small defenseman and he was very gifted. Like one of the greatest athletes I've ever met in my life. Like I got stories about Gary Lehman that will blow you away. Think about this: 2nd round draft pick, as a defenseman, scores 50 goals as a forward.
Mm-hmm.
Met a girl one summer, picked up golf, and by the training camp, he was a 0 handicap. When he played hockey at Notre Dame, he played soccer before the season started. Football team calls him over to kick field goals. That year, he won Rookie of the Year and MVP of the Football League in Saskatchewan and the MVP of the soccer in Saskatchewan. Like, unbelievable athlete. So they moved him up to forward. Wendell came in. They wouldn't put us together. They put him with whoever, and they moved him up to forward. And then our president sat behind the bench in Toronto and kept yelling, "Put the Hound Line out, put the Hound Line out." And finally, Dan Maloney, I don't know, a week later, the people were talking about these 3 kids. It'd be like the kid line, like all these.
Yeah.
Toronto had all these famous lines, the kid line and this line, that line. And they were like, you got to put these guys
Jackson
together.
Yeah.
He didn't, they never wanted to put 3 young guys together. When I was there, they always had me with 2 older players. They had Gary with 2 older players. They had Gary, and Wendell was with like Derlego and Rick Five for a bit, or he was with Volpetupi. I don't know, but they were always they were scared of putting 3 young guys on the ice together at the same time. And when they did, it was magic. We just, with Wendell's toughness and his wrist shot and scoring ability, and Gary's playmaking and defensive play, and then me with I like to pass, we clicked, and the fans loved it. And Wendell beat the shit out of everybody that touched us. I asked him, I found out I did TSN, and I was on this show about concussions, and they were talking about fighting. And that day I found out I got 20 fights in my career. I thought I had 16. I thought I was good for 1 a year. I was so proud of myself that I had 20 fights. That night I'm at the Leaf game with Wendell. And I said, "Clarky, I found out today I was in 20 fights. How many were you in?" And he goes, "I was in 36 the first year I played with you."
In 1 year. Yeah.
In 1 year. But it was fun. It was so much fun. And then Wendell hurt his back, and then I got traded. Gary got traded. I mean, it was
Yeah.
It's too bad that we didn't have more time with that team because we had such great players. Like Wendell always talks about the best Leaf team he ever played on, talent-wise, was the 1987 Toronto Maple Leafs.
I'm going to stop you right there, Russ, because we have a clip of Wendell that is going to run it. He talks about you guys, the Hound Line, and that team. So let's listen to what I say.
So you mentioned that you found out you were a left winger when you saw the roster posted and your position on the line. The Hound Line with you and Lehman and Courtnall, pretty speedy line, team with a lot of skill. That must have been exciting. You guys had a pretty damn good year.
Yeah, actually, we had a great team that 85, 86, 86, 80, 85, 86, 86, 87. We'd lost the second round in the Campbell Conference finals all the time for a team that just barely squeaked in the playoffs. And if you could have kept that team together with some hierarchy above us, I think you had a great, I always tell people, we had as much talent on that 85, 86 team as we did on our 92, 93 team, minus the Dougie Gilmore 100 and some points, right? So, we had, Stevie Thomas scoring 30, Squid scoring 30, and Russ in high 20s, Gary in the 20s. We had a lot of skill, and our defense were all just learning. And both our goalies, Kenny and Allen, were 20 years old. We had a team that had a chance to grow together if you could have kept it together and give it some direction.
Yeah, it's almost a shame that you never got that, right?
Yeah, it was a funny time. I've got a lot of good things to say about Harold Ballard, because he really looked after me and my family, and he was awesome. But he was elderly, and he hired within. He never went outside of Maple Leaf. If somebody played for the Maple Leafs and coaching it, and so he wanted to win so freaking bad. I mean, when we swept Chicago in the best of 5, we swept them in 3. He was like, he phoned the mayor and said, "Okay, you got to plan the parade, like where this team's going to win." And then when we lost, man, and we flew these Air Ontario charters. They were like 60 passenger turboprop planes. When we lost in St. Louis in Game 7, he turned the heat up to where guys were taking their clothes off and getting sick because it was so hot in there. He was so mad at us that we lost. He cranked the heat it was so unbearable. Guys were in their dress pants with no shirts on. And he was not a happy man, but that guy wanted to win. He just, couldn't figure it out. But it would have been fun to keep that team together. But it didn't happen. But we, I think all of us took something positive from that experience in Toronto and took it on, wherever we went in our NHL journey. Took that experience from being so young and playing in Toronto, and the pressure that you have from the fans and the media, which I love. I love the pressure. Because I played in cities that don't have any, and it's so much more fun to be in a city that loves their game as passionate as some of the cities, a lot of the cities do. It's the best city to play in when they're pissed off when you lose and over the moon when you win.
Vic, producer Vic has a question. Let her rip.
It was funny playing in Toronto back then, because the city my wife shot a TV show there, and we were talking the other day of how Toronto was dead. Like Sunday, there was nothing in downtown Toronto. No, there was barely any people, and it was really older. People went there to work and then they left for the suburbs. It was tough as a young guy there. I mean, not anymore. There's lots of people living downtown, lots of places for single guys to go. But it was it was not easy. The games were great. Wendell and I used to go to this place called the Copa. And back then we played 8:00 games on Saturdays. The bar closed at 1, so last call was probably 12:45 or something. And we would get there late. And I lived at the Palace Pier, 10:04 Palace Pier. And we would go around the entire bar going 10 to the girls, 10:04 Palace Pier if you want to come. And we were sponsored by Molson, so we always had tons of beer. So we'd get back to my apartment and never knew who was going to show up. that was our, we had a lot of fun at the Palace Pier, 10:04. Apartment 10:04 Palace Pier, I'll never forget it. And we never knew who was going to show up, and there were some crazy people, but thank God we had Wendell there. So nothing ever got out of hand. But Toronto was a different city back then. It was a totally different city. There wasn't a lot of people living downtown like there are today. Not for young people like me. Like I was 18 to 23 trying to navigate my way through Toronto. It was Montreal. I got different stories about. It was fun.
Well, we'll talk about that move to Montreal. So you're involved in what many believe was, well, certainly among the worst trades in NHL history, the way things unfolded. You're traded for John Cordic. This is what Gord Stillick had to say, the guy who pulled the trigger on that deal when we had him on the program.
Oh, boy.
Season got going well. And then, one game, it was in Chicago. And I remember that Russ wasn't dressing. And he just came and he was, I was just like dejected. I said, oh, shoot. And so I just said, I'll figure something out for you. Okay. Just lay low on that. So Danny Daou was playing ahead of him in that case. So a couple of weeks later, the one guy and Brophy had been in Montreal when they won the Stanley Cup in 1986. And John Cordic was a big part of that in the playoffs, that kind of toughness and that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a guy he was extremely hot on. It ends up being a bad trade. Nothing more you could say about it. If John Cordic, unfortunately, who was a really funny guy, I really liked him. He obviously had a lot of demons. He obviously had addiction issues. He wasn't the same guy that Bro remembered in '86. So the trade's made, and I'm happy that I and maybe self-survival wise, it's not the best thing to do, but I didn't grease the skids for Brophy. I got him. I made that move, and then 2 months later, I convinced Harold to fire Brophy. That was a hard one. So anyway, that's the way it went.
Yeah. So what do you add to that time?
That he's right. I went to John Brophy. He sat me out 3 games, I think. And I went into his office in Chicago, old Chicago Stadium. I went into his office and I went, in a roundabout way, I don't want to say exactly what I said, but I said, I shouldn't be sitting out. I'm not somebody that should be sitting out. I should be playing. This is ridiculous. And it was personal. He didn't like me. And so he was trying to bury me or get me traded, which he did. And he chuckled when it all happened. And I got traded, multiple times. And I always shook the hand of the GM and the coach when I left. Or if I got traded in the off season, shook the hand during the season. And it was a gift. It was a gift for me because I was spiraling and had a lot of self-doubt. And I went to Montreal and we had a great team, and I had to kind of work my way back to where I was. And I didn't have the pressure to do that because we had such great players there. I just had to get Russ Courtnall playing good hockey, but didn't have to be the first or second line centerman. And then they moved me to right wing. And that was really difficult for me because I played my whole life as a centerman. And then I was like, okay, I have no choice here. I have to learn how to do this. And I had some great wingers to teach me how to play the position, Matt Snaslin being one of them, who really was instrumental in helping me adjust and play the wing. And had 4 years there, 3 years that were unbelievable. My last year wasn't great. I had signed a big contract at the time. I was the 20th highest paid player in the league at $835,000. And that lasted for all of, 1 week. Then other teams started signing guys. But I tore my rotator cuff and missed 40 games and blah, blah, blah. And then it was over in Montreal and got traded to Minnesota.
Well, yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the time in Montreal because, as you mentioned, 4 great seasons there, 3 of them great and 1 of them not so great. The injury was a factor of that. We got a goal here from you in Montreal. You guys made it to the Stanley Cup Final one year, and here's an opportunity for you to advance as well. I think this is a series against Hartford, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
and there's a goal you got. Yeah, Game 7, series clincher right there.
Yeah, how did that feel? It was one of my last few games in Montreal, so we lost, I think, 4 straight after that to Boston. Mm-hmm. But that was a tough. So during this game, I'm getting booed. At the beginning of the game, Pat Burns sat me out during the playoffs. I mean, it's going horrible. It's kind of back to where it was going with Brophy, but it was going with Pat Burns, just not good. And the injury, the salary, and then me going, you know what? I don't know if I want to play here. I was talking to Serge Savard, like, get me out of here. I don't know. Like, it was bad. And the media turned on me, and rightfully so for whatever, player I was a high profile player from the 3 years before, and then things were not going well. And you have to deal with that when you play in these markets. So that game, if you watch the whole game, they booed me in the first period when I was touching the puck, my own fans.
Wow.
And then they carried me off the ice in their arms.
Oh, that's a nice way to turn it around. And that's beautiful. So, only in sports can you do something like that.
Yeah. Well, Dick Irvin, if you listen to his monologue after the game, I think he's with Harry Neal, and he'll say the interesting part of this game is Russ Courtnall was getting booed from his home fans, and now they're standing on their feet cheering as he, gets carried off the ice or whatever. So, but I have fond memories of playing in Montreal. I think that I learned so much about Canada as a Canadian kid, living there for 4 years. I learned what it was like to be a Montreal Canadian. My dad was such a Leaf fan, and so was I. My favorite player was Boris Salman. When I played my first game in Chicago with the Montreal Canadiens, before I put the jersey on, I lifted it up to the sky, and I said, "I'm sorry, Dad," and went on to love it. Like it's your job, and you're getting paid to do something you love to do, and then it's unbelievable. You fall in love with everything. The culture was great. The city was awesome. When things were good there, it was unbelievable. Like it is. And I'm really happy that Montreal had a good season this year. And I don't know St. Louis, but I was so happy for him and the team, the ownership, the city. I think Montreal Canadiens are important to our league. As is Toronto Maple Leafs, and I'm really pleased that they're doing well. And so when I follow these Stanley Cup playoffs, I cheer for Toronto, and then I kind of go, I played for the Stars, so I'm cheering. I'm hoping they're doing well, and Montreal, and if Vancouver's in, or the Rangers, or the Kings, I have a tie to all the teams that I played for. So. But my number one team is Toronto still.
Right. And that makes sense. Having your dad, liking the Leafs and you being a Leafs fan as a kid too, and then getting grabbed by him. I mean, that's a dream come true. No question. So Minnesota and then ultimately Dallas, you were an all-star in Minnesota and Dallas. What an honor that must have been.
Yeah, it was. It's one of those selfish moments where it's, you're getting recognized for your individual play. And I was nervous to be there, surrounded by all the great players in the NHL. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had my mom and my stepdad there. My wife and my oldest was there. She was a baby. And we had a great few days. It was fun. I did enjoy that recognition. I think the Team Canada is a bigger deal for me than, it's way bigger deal for me than All-Star, but having that opportunity to play in that game was fun.
Well, yeah, in 1991 Canada Cup, you got a chance to play with Gretzky.
Yeah.
How many guys can say that, right? And then,
that was wild.
Here we are right here.
Oh, wow. I'm
setting
seeing
up
all
Al
these
McInnes
clips.
for the goal.
That's wild. Wow.
Bing, bada boom.
Who's that against? Huh.
Huh?
I'm wondering what team is that against? Czechs?
Am I going to say the Czechs? Yeah.
I can't see it on my screen, but
right. It looks like the Czechs, yeah.
That was a great honor, making that team. That was incredible. So on cut day, we're in Toronto, and they moved 6 guys. So they're cutting 3 guys. And they put Claude Lemieux and I in a room. They put the other 2 guys in a room, and another 2. And we're roommates in a training camp. And they're cutting 3 of us. And they know this is Mike Keenan. And he's going to cut 1 player from each room. And the phone, so they say, go to your room. We're going to call you between 2 and 3 or something. I don't know what time it was. It was daylight. So Claude and I we played in Montreal together. So we're friends. He's laying in his bed. I'm laying in mine. We're watching TV. The phone rings. Turn the TV off. He picks up the phone and he goes, yeah, okay. Yeah. I'll tell him. Okay. I'll tell him. Thank you. All right. See you guys. I'll see you guys later. He hangs up. He goes, well, you made the team. I'm leaving.
Wow.
So that's how I found out I made the team. Yeah. That was amazing.
What if it had been the other way around?
They cut Steve Yzerman. They cut Steve Yzerman and kept Eric Lindros,
who wasn't even in the league yet.
Exactly, and he ended up being my roommate during Canada Cup.
Wow. I was just thinking though, and if it had been the other way around, you pick up the phone, you got to tell them he's been cut.
Yeah, it was bizarre. Yeah, it was. Yeah. But anyways, that was a great experience. And we won that year. I got my trophy up here somewhere. Yeah, it's up there. Yeah. Still got my Canada Cup trophy.
What was it like when you guys moved from Minnesota to Dallas?
It was unbelievable. So we knew pretty much, I knew the whole year we were moving. So I'll tell you this story. I bet you haven't heard. The Minnesota North Stars were going to Anaheim. And one of the reasons they traded for me was I wanted to play in LA. And I had made it public that I wanted to play there because my wife, my fiance wife, was an actress. And so I said, I want to play. If I can't play, if I'm not going to play in Montreal, I want to play in LA. And they traded for me. And the reason they traded for me was because they were moving to Anaheim. And then after Christmas, I think, the league called Norm Green, our owner, and said, Disney wants to buy the team and they want to obviously be in Anaheim. So you get to pick wherever you want to go. Here are the cities. And he picked Dallas. And that's how we ended up in Dallas. So we all moved there. And in the summer, in the off season, they said, okay, here's where the practice rink is. Not one player on our team had ever been to Dallas. So you fly down there with your wife or by yourself, and then we start getting stories back. Oh, I bought in Hackberry Creek. Next guy, Hackberry Creek. It's like 10 minutes from a practice rink, 20 minutes from downtown or something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
So almost the whole team bought in Hackberry Creek. We don't know anybody outside, like no friends in Dallas, just the team. We end up becoming this super close, good team, set a record for points that year for the Stars organization. We were a really good team, but because we had to rely on each other, we were super tight. It was unbelievable. One of the tightest teams I ever played on, one of the funnest teams. It was a crazy team. On and off the ice, we were a tight group and had so many great nights and trips together. And our wives we were living in the same neighborhood, and they were like, okay, pizza night. And we'd have the whole team together. It just never happened on any other team because everybody had a life outside of the game, and we didn't have that. Dallas fell in love with the sport. They fell in love with the players, and we were the second most popular team in Dallas that year because the Mavs sucked and the Cowboys were winning Super Bowls, and they loved this new style of sport where guys were running around killing each other, body checks, fighting. I mean, they absolutely loved it. City loved us. They loved their athletes. Great place to play. And so we had fun. But unfortunately, our Norm was having financial difficulties. He was trying to sell the team, and he was only allowed to sell or sign 2 or 3. He only let Bob Gainey sign 2 or 3 players, and I wasn't one of them. And so they weren't offering me what I was worth, and ended up getting traded. So it sucked because 2 of my best years were in Dallas. 79 points in Minnesota. I think I had 80 in the next year. I, had most goals ever for me, 36, I think, one year. And most assists I ever had was the next year. And so, I was playing really well, but unfortunately, financially, it was not going well for Dallas.
Yeah, and of course the Anaheim they wanted Disney's franchise fee and all that stuff too, so it was pretty important. So that move was made. So a lot of people probably don't realize it, but 2 times you were nominated for the Selke Trophy as the top defensive forward in the league. And then, of course, did you play with a defensive mindset, or did it just sort of?
So what happened? No, what happened is I got. Did you say 3 times?
Twice.
Yeah,
Twice
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Thought I heard you say 3. I'm like, I don't remember a third time. So what happened to me as a player, I got traded to Montreal, and they had enough offense. And so they converted me to right wing. And we had Bob Caney as a centerman. We had Shane Corson. We had Brian Scrudlin, Guy Carbonneau. And it just made more sense for me to go to wing than try to move probably Corson to wing. And definitely not Screwy, and the other 2 were not going to the wing. So if I was going to fit in the line, they put me on the wing, and then they put me on a line with Carbonneau and Mike McPhee, or Brian Scrudlin and Mike McPhee. And those were our defensive lines. And what was amazing was I was still able to get points. So every time we got the puck, playing against the other team's high octane offensive line, and if you got the puck, you had chances to score because they were usually deep in the offensive zone and weren't great back checkers, most of them. So if Carbo got the puck or Spud, Mike McPhee, we were off to the races. We were the checking line, and we each got 20 plus goals every year we played together. Can you imagine that? A checking line, like 70, 80 goals a year. And then after I left there, I went and played with Neil Broughton, one of the best American offensive players ever to play the game. Bob Gainey turned him into a defensive centerman. So when Mike McPhee got traded there, there's myself and Neil Broughton. Should be in the Hall of Fame. And every time we got the puck, off to the races and had scoring chances. And then in Vancouver, I got to play with Trevor Linden. And so I was on these lines that we were capable to score and be offensive, but we were a defensive line, if that makes sense.
Well, transitionally too, like you guys are blazing speed there. I mean, there's so much speed. You guys can go from defense to offense in a heartbeat, right? So
right,
yeah.
And it was a good compliment. So that's how the Selke thing happened. In fact, I brought it up I had one arbitration case with Vancouver for salary arbitration. And I brought it up to the guys who were fighting for me from the NHL alumni, and they brought it up in my case. And the assistant GM for Vancouver, he's now the president of Vegas.
George. Not McPhee. No, not George.
Yeah,
McPhee.
George McPhee.
George McPhee. Yeah.
So he was there fighting for the Canucks, going, we don't want to, So the argument is, you're great. Their argument is, you're not that great. And I said to them, I go, and I was voted twice for the Selke. And he turned, and he's like supposed to be a lawyer, turns to the arbitrator and goes, we looked in the end, we can't find that Russ was nominated for Selke.
Yeah.
Totally lied to the guy.
Yeah.
Almost like, what? And then he brought up something else that negative. And I said, they can lie all they want about me. But when they start poking at my character, I go, that's where I turned to the arbitrator and said, this is bullshit. They can argue about hockey and all that stuff. I'm not going to say anything, but he said something negative about me and the young guys on the team. And I go, now he's lying. And I won the case. And I think I won the case because I actually stuck up for myself, my character, versus talking about how great a hockey player I was, because that's all they were doing. He's great. No, he's not. He's great. No, he's not. It's not fun to be in those arbitration cases.
No kidding.
It's a blow to your ego for sure.
Well, we have a goal from you when you were in Vancouver. Another great one. Showing off your speed. And of course, we're talking about the transition game. You're going to intercept a pass. Now, this was big because it was a playoff game against Ed Belfour and the Blackhawks at home. It was your second of the night. Was this one of your more memorable goals?
Well, playing in Vancouver was unbelievable. I got traded there, and I was so excited to be playing with my brother and playing in Vancouver. I just elevated my play and had great success at the end of the season and in the playoffs. And unfortunately, we lost to Chicago. But God, we are a good team, man. And we, I have some great moments in Vancouver, but unfortunately, we lost to the Blackhawks. I think we lost our second, third, and fourth loss were all in overtime. Joe Murphy got the game winner in game 2. And then the next 2 were Chris Chelios was back-to-back overtime winners.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shelley
sucked.
Here's an interesting stat that a lot of people don't know. NHL record. You and Geoff, the only brothers to each play 1,000 games in the NHL. That's a cool piece of trivia.
We were the first.
Oh, is there? Has it happened since? Okay.
Yeah. So you'll win a lot of money in a bar if you're in a sports bar in Canada and you're betting you could name all the brothers combinations. Who was the first? And you could name like Richards and the Espositos and Sutters. Who was the first brother combination to play 1,000 games each? So we didn't know about this stat, but we knew about how important it was to play 1,000 games. So Geoff and I are closing in on 1,000 games, and somebody looked it up, like who were the first two brothers to play 1,000 games, and there wasn't anyone. And so the media, as we got closer, the media started making a big deal about it. And sure enough, I break my ankle in San Jose. I get a slap shot, break my ankle. I come back. Now Geoff's played 1,000 games because he passed me. I was ahead of him. He passes me and plays 1,000. So now it's up to me. And I can feel my career kind of winding down. I'm playing for Larry Robinson. And Rick Green comes up to me, and he's the assistant coach. And he says, hey, coach wants to know what's wrong with you. You're not playing great. And I'm at 991. And I go, I didn't want to tell anybody, but if I play 1,000, when I play 1,000 games, it's a record, NHL record. I said, Greener, just get me to tell Larry, I just need to get to 1,000 and then I'll be fine after that. And just trust me, I'll start playing better, but I'm just worried about getting there. And it was hanging over my head. And so as soon as I got my 1,000, it was like celebration and our it was such a proud moment from two kids from Oak Bay, Canada, Victoria, British Columbia. One wasn't drafted, and we both played 1,000 games. I mean, it was just a phenomenal thing for us to, be like two kids, right? I don't know. It was an amazing thing for our family and for Geoff and I to be able to do that. I can't remember who was next, but after us, the Niedermeyers, both from BC, they did it. The Sutter brothers, I think they did it. But there's been a few, but not many. Not many.
I guess if you had all the Sutter brothers up, there's probably
the Stahl brothers. I think the Stahl brothers.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Stahl brothers. Right. I think maybe the Shen brothers, I would guess. After the show, I'm going to go on and see which ones have done it.
Makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. The Shen brothers make sense. They played against each other in the last series.
Yeah.
Pretty wild. So I got a nice tribute a few years back, and you and Wendell reunited for the ceremonial puck drop, a game between the Leafs and the Flames. It was 80s night. Tell us about this moment, what it was like for you to be back in the old stomping grounds. A different arena, of course, but
we were in we have a couple beers before this, and we're just sitting around waiting and talking to everybody. We're in like the owner's lounge or something, and Alan Frew from Glass Tigers in there. And I've known Alan a long time, and Wendell has. And he says to us, hey, if you guys don't mind, when I'm going out to sing the anthem, I'm going to come over and we'll sing it together. He was joking, and I thought he was freaking serious. So during this whole tribute, I'm rocking back and forth because I felt like my legs were going to give out. But if you watch the entire tribute, I'm moving around because I think I'm going to faint. I've never fainted in my life. But all I can think about is the mic coming over, and I can't remember the words of the song. I'm like, fuck. And so Ellen and Wendell was like, "What were you doing?" I go, I thought he was gonna bring the mic over, and we had to sing the anthem with them. But Gary Lehman was supposed to be there, and he ended up not being able to make it. And so it was supposed to be a Hound Line tribute, the 80s, but it was great. Every time I go back to Toronto and I get to go to a game and hang out with Wendell, we don't talk a lot, but when we see each other, it's like yesterday we were together, and he's one of my, if not my best friend from my years of playing hockey, even though we don't spend time together or talk a lot, but my memories are so vivid of he and I hanging out and playing hockey together and growing into the NHL, and him really helping me out. I hope that I helped him out a little bit, but he made such an impact for so many of us and the city. And to this day, he's a hero. He's a wonderful human being. He's got a great family. The legacy of Wendell is phenomenal, and I just love the guy. So it's always good to be with Wendell.
Definitely one of the most popular leagues of all time, and because because he always wore his heart on his chest, and he always came to play, and he had 36 fights in 1 year sticking up for Russ Courtnall. So
he said when shit would happen after the whistle and guys were pushing him, he used to tell me, he goes, count to 3. If you get in trouble, just count to 3. And if I'm not there in 3 seconds, I'm fighting somebody else and you're on your own. And there's so many times, I mean, he would, oh my God, he gave me so much room, and he wasn't a big guy. When he came in the league, he wasn't a big guy. And so many people want to take a crack at him, and they just get their asses handed to them. I mean, I had a front row seat. He kicked the shit out of everybody. It was phenomenal.
Pound for pound. For pound. There was nobody
pound
better.
For pound.
No doubt.
Yeah.
So you talk about, Wendell, he's like family, right? So, but I want to talk about your family. It's quite an interesting collection here. First, of course, you marry Paris Vaughn, who comes from a famous musical family. Tell us about Paris and the kids and her family.
So I used to come down to LA in the off season, and I met a lady who looked after Tony Danza, and she used to always invite me to LA. And I came down to LA this one summer, and I was single, and I met this girl from Canada who was an actress, and we were all hanging out together. And her friend was my wife, Paris Vaughn. Her mom was Sarah Vaughn, one of the most famous jazz singers of all time. We became friends, talked over the phone. That I was in Montreal, and the same friend that worked for Tony Danza kept egging me on all year, like, you and Paris. Mm-hmm. We were just friends on the phone. And after the season, she goes, if you don't get down here to LA, I'm going to introduce her to somebody. So I got on the next plane the next morning. I flew to LA, and we were engaged like 5 to 7 weeks later. And that's the year I played 91 Canada Cup. And we got married the year after, and in 92. And I remember calling my mom going, hey, I want to introduce you to this girl. She goes, oh, great. And I'm telling her, she's an actress. She's from LA. And I think I want to marry her. I'm going to marry her. She's like, what? We haven't even met her yet. And then I go, yeah. And her mom was a famous jazz singer. She goes, who? And I go, Sarah Vaughn. She almost fell off her chair. I think that was more surprising than me saying, I want to marry this girl.
Right.
She goes, oh my God, I grew up listening to her. So they met, I believe they met in Hamilton at the 91 Canada Cup Series. That's when they first met. And my family quickly fell in love with her. And we have 3 kids. They're all athletes, 2 girls and a boy. My oldest is an unbelievable athlete. They're all unbelievable athletes, but my oldest has some crazy records. My youngest plays, she's 22. She plays soccer in North Carolina for the Courage. She just signed out of USC. It's first year pro. My son is a retired hockey player. He played 3 years pro in the East Coast League, and now he's selling real estate in Charleston in South Carolina, the last team he played for. And my daughter is married to a football player who she met in college when she was running track at UCLA and playing soccer. And they have 2 kids, so I'm a grandfather. And he is unsigned, but he'll be entering his 11th year in the NFL. So everybody's an athlete, and but they're really good kids. Like the mom did a great job. They're very grounded, very humble, just beautiful inside and out. And I'm so proud of all 3 of them. And we're hoping that our youngest ends up playing on an Olympic team, the U.S. team or Canada. She could play on either one. She's only 22, like I said. So we'll see. But yeah, they're good. They're all doing good. And as I tell a lot of my friends, you're only as happy as your saddest child. And right now, all 3 of them are doing great.
That's beautiful. And yeah, we saw Eric Hendricks, your son.
Yeah, Eric Hendricks.
I guess when he was a Viking, you were a Vikings fan. When
yeah,
he was
of course.
You guys are Cowboy fans, and whatever.
Yeah.
But he's outside right now, so Eddie. Well, I guess you would have idea at this point where
he's talking to a few teams, but he's not signed yet. But he's talking to 4 or 5 teams. So his stats are really good. He had a shoulder injury last year, and he had to have it redone, and he's back to 100%. So I think whoever signs him, he's going to have to make sure he goes through all that testing, which he's confident it'll all be fine. He's good. So we're just waiting to hear where he's going to play. And if he doesn't, that's a 10-year career, so it's all good.
Right. Well, I was going to say you can send him up to the CFL for a little while. Get a taste of Canada. Might be a little cold for his liking, but who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you and your family have done a lot of work for mental health, leading, of course, to the Courtnall Center, named after your father. At the Royal Jubilee Hospital in Victoria, the Courtnall Society for Mental Health. Tell us about that.
So Ben O'Connor is a friend from Victoria and was fundraising. He's a lawyer, and he was fundraising for, it was like Victoria something cares. And Geoff and I our parents always gave back. We didn't have money, so they gave their time. They coached. My mom was on the PTA, or she ran the concession. So we grew up with these parents that always donated their time. When we became professional athletes, we felt like we should give back. So we had 3 years in Vancouver where we raised money for Canuck Place. And then we both left Vancouver, and we just felt like we should do something for our hometown. And Ben O'Connor said they were raising money for mental health. And so we jumped on that and told our story about our father, Archie, and the community was unbelievable. And the people who came, and from people who donated to the celebrities and the community at large really got behind it. And we raised enough money, so much money in the first year. We were going to try to raise $100,000, and I think we did $1 million in the first year.
Wow.
That there was a plan to build an emergency psychiatric emergency center, so that people struggling with mental health, the police, or they could go to this center instead of going to emergency, which that's where
you get
people
turned
end
away, and that's crazy.
And they're there 8 to 10 hours, and if they're physically going to harm themselves or someone else, police they stay there with them for 8 to 10 hours on average. So there was this plan to build this building, and so we had raised so much money. They said if you do the charity again, which we were planning to do the next year, we'll start the process to build this. It was going to cost like $2.3 million or something at the time. And if you do it again, we think, with the success you've had, we can, if you have a shortfall, then we'll fill in the blanks. Wow. So by the time we had the next charity event, the facility was almost built. So it was open. And man, thousands and thousands of people have gone through that place, and they named it Archie Courtnall Center, which was really cool because I didn't, I would have thought it was a no-brainer. Like, we raised the money, they would name it after our dad. We didn't even ask. And they said, there's a process, and we've chosen your dad's name, which was unbelievable. And then, so we raised enough money, we stopped doing the charity event. And then they needed, they were building a new hospital, a new wing, and they wanted to build 54 beds for long-term mental health care. So the people who go through our center, you're there for 72 hours. You hopefully go home. And if you don't, now you go to the long-term center. And we had a third event, and we helped pay for that. It's 54 beds at the Royal Jubilee. And we're still an active charity. We're now called the Courtnall Society for Mental Health. And we now have people who are organizations that have mental health care programs, and they submit an application to our society, and we donate money to the programs that we want to support. So every year we give away thousands of dollars, and we keep fundraising. We just did the 100th anniversary Stanley Cup victory for Victoria Cougars in Oak Bay, and we raised $25,000 over that weekend. And we keep adding to the pot, and we're hoping to become. Hopefully we have enough money one day where, the interest or whatever is the money that we're donating. And so we keep building the principle, and we take donations from all over. And it's been something that we're super proud of. And it was good for us because it really helped us heal more. Mm-hmm. I would say, because we grew up saying our dad died of a heart attack, and we didn't come clean till we were well on our way in our professional careers. And then Geoff came out publicly and told a reporter what really happened. And then it was out, and then we had to deal with that. And my mom was not happy when he went public with it, but it was the best thing for our family ever when he did that, because then we could start living the truth of what happened versus a lie. So it's been, other than having kids, it's probably the best thing that I've done.
We know we have a different attitude towards mental health than we did, not all that long ago, like Sick Not Weak and all the programs that, Bill, Let's Talk. There's a lot of different, programs that will help us to understand that this is an illness, right?
Yeah.
It's like my and
it's okay to talk about it.
An illness, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay. And I tell people all the time, like, I've been in therapy 5 times, and it's been hugely beneficial for me. And I've never been suicidal, but I've had depression, and I recognized it because of what I saw with my dad as a young kid. And first bout I had was in Montreal, and it was over a breakup with a girlfriend, and I just spiraled, and Serge Savard got me help, and I went on to win Molson Cup Player of the Year that year, and had my best year up till that point. And it was because of him, getting me the help that I needed. And it was like, oh man, I had like 2 or 3 sessions, and I was fixed. Right. For the moment I was fixed. But I just tell people all the time, if it doesn't feel right, you should quit asking your friends and go talk to your doctor and get help, because telling a friend is not the answer what's going on in your life. You need to go tell a professional and get that professional advice, versus our loved ones that just, it's their fault, or it's this or it's that. They don't know. They want to help you, but they don't know how to help. And usually it's the wrong advice that we get from our friends and family. Not the in my experience anyways. So
I know Kelly Rudy was on the show and he talked about that too. It's reaching out and asking for help, but asking the right people.
Yeah. But just if you got a flat tire in your car, you get it fixed. You're lacking oil in your car, you put oil in it. But if we are not feeling good about ourselves for whatever reason, we don't go to get fixed, and then it gets worse and it gets worse, and then people fall into these traps of, not a trap, but just fall into these dark places that are hard to get out of. And you got a better chance if you talk about it with somebody who knows what they're doing.
There can be
I don't have a relationship with any therapist that I've ever been to. I can't even probably remember their names, but they all freaking help me big time.
Right.
So,
well, speaking of helping, we're partnered with a group called Believe, Become, Be You. It's a mentorship program for kids 10 to 17, inspired by the late Sean Gindy, led by Papa Jack. What's the message that you would have, Russ, for any kids who might be struggling to find their way in today's world?
It's okay to find out what you don't want to do. So many kids that I talk to, and they go to college, or they go, I changed my path because I thought I wanted to be something, and then I found out that wasn't who I wanted to be or wanted to do. So don't be afraid to find out what it is that doesn't work for you, and on the way to finding out what fits right for you. An open mind, open heart always works best. Hard work and dedication, even though it might be something that you got to figure out in the end that wasn't the right choice, but just lifting up all those rocks and eventually finding out what it is that you want to do. And happiness is an amazing thing. And looking in this world that we're in now, that you can see so many people on social media and they look like they're doing great, or you want to be that person, be the best person you can be, and try to find what makes you happy, and get up in the morning and feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited because I'm doing what I love to do. So many kids are trying to please other people, and I just think they need to please themselves, not worry about the other stuff.
Right, because we all have an image of what we think everybody else is, and what everybody else is doing. But at the end of the day, if we were to walk in their shoes and understand where they're coming from, all of us are probably, I'll take my own sack of rocks, thank you. Right?
Yeah.
So before we go, we're watching our Maple Leafs and what they're doing in the playoffs. They have a shot. Do you think they have a shot here?
Every team who makes the playoffs in this NHL has a chance to win the cup. They're all so good. And every year you just got to get into the dance, and then you never know who's going to be the last person standing. The Leafs are so capable. There's so much pressure on some of these teams, Maple Leafs probably being the team that has the most. But they ultimately, they want to win too, as much as we want them to win. And so they all put the same pressure on themselves they would, regardless of where they are. But man, those first two games surprised me, because Florida's a hell of a hockey team, and the Leafs played really, really well. And I'm impressed with the last two games. I'm impressed with their playoffs. So hopefully, I'm pulling for them. I know everybody else is. They just got to keep doing what they're doing, and they're pulling together at the right time, and we'll see what happens.
Right,
we're going to find out. But they sure look good. They sure do look good.
And you'll have to come to town for the parade.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks so much, Russ. I really appreciate you taking the time
Thanks
to do
for having
this.
me
It's been
on.
awesome catching up, buddy. It's just been good. And good luck with the Suspendables podcast. If anybody has a chance to check it out, it's great. You and Jungle Jim, I guess it is, yeah?
Yeah,
and then,
Jungle Jim.
Yeah. And, of course, good luck as well with the, the Courtnall Society for Mental Health.
Thank you.
Doing some amazing work and helping a lot of people.
Appreciate it.
It's just so awesome.
Appreciate you
when we
bringing
come
that.
back, buddy, Teresa Bailey and Terry Marcotte talk about Connor McDavid's story, their book, Hockey Moms. In 1992, the best locally owned restoration companies came together with one goal: to make disaster recovery better for Canadians. And to this day, DKI remains one of the only 100% Canadian-owned disaster restoration groups in the market. Fire, flood, or storm damage. When things go wrong, the right help makes all the difference. With the right tools and local expertise, we handle everything from emergency response to full-scale restoration, getting homes and businesses back on track the right way. Because a home is more than four walls. A business is more than a building, and recovery is about more than repairs. When you choose DKI, you're choosing a company that's put Canada first since 1992. Locally owned, nationally backed, Canadian through and through. Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca.
She talked about building little steps with little goals on each step. You know, every game that you play, you're a step closer to getting to that competitive level. That's what she had to do to make it work for Connor McDavid, because he's just wired differently than a lot of kids. And I mean, she was the one, she was telling her husband, let's put the brakes on here. A lot of kids out there with a lot of talent. And I think he was 12 years old. She went to one of his games. They had two sons, and she spent a lot of time with the older brother, Cameron. And she goes out and watches, yeah, I get it. This guy is special. So she, rather than pushing, she was almost kind of reining in the expectations.
Such an incredible role that the mothers play in all of this, obviously, and we knew that, but just we really get a feel for it now. And Kelly is still involved, of course, with Connor running his charities. We actually have a clip from a piece that was done recently involving Kelly. Vic, can we roll that?
The difficulty is the time commitment and the cost commitment. You know, there's the cost of the equipment, there's the cost of tournaments, there's the cost of joining a club. There is thousands and thousands of dollars that are involved. Well, I partnered with Febreze Hockey Heroes, and we are asking people to donate their gently used skates so that we can hand them out to kids.
And Kelly's advice from your book: enjoy the ride. It goes by fast. Can you relate to that, Teresa?
I really can. And actually, I met Kelly through that campaign. She was working. They were working with my website, so that's how I initially got connected with her way pre-pandemic. I think the ride goes very fast, and part of what I learned through my own kids' minor hockey and talking to all of these moms is that it goes as fast as your kids grow up, and we know how quickly that goes. And the other thing is that we're growing up along with our children. So how you handle things when you're young, a young mother, is different than when you come out with your kids playing junior, if they're still playing at that point. And sometimes we don't realize how quickly it all goes. And I think there's in me afterward, when I'm talking about reflecting on my oldest son and of his minor hockey days, it hits you when it's over, and it really does go fast. So there's one message all of these moments say would be to enjoy.
Discover the secret to timeless vitality at Renew Medical Center in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Our specialists unravel the science of aging, tailoring plans to defy its effects. Experience cutting-edge regenerative therapies such as stem cells and exosomes, addressing aging at its core.
It's a wonderful spot, and I highly recommend it for whatever you may need, whether you just want to feel better, you want to look better, have basically a quality of life, just to ramp it up a little bit as we age.
Liberate yourself from aging-related concerns, where accountability, technology, and passion for regenerative medicine converge. Begin your path to peak health and wellness with us. Schedule your appointment today at renewpv.com and elevate your quality of life.
Parents, what's the biggest fear for kids 10 to 14? A future they think they can't handle. At Believe, Become, Be You, we know confidence in the future is a habit we can build. Our course doesn't just prepare kids for the future, it seeds them with skills they will use now. For a limited time, the I Believe in Me Foundation is offering the first 1,000 kids and their parents 1 year free access. This priceless opportunity will save you over $2,000. This isn't just a course. It's a journey in developing life-enhancing skills that will grow with your child, fostering gritty minds, creative futures, and better bonds. Get signed up now at BelieveBecomeBeYou.com. That's BelieveBecomeBeYou.com.
And we want to thank all the folks who make the show possible. These are friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great people. We highly recommend them all. Thank you for your support of Canadian sports. A reminder that the show is available on iTunes, Spotify, Breaker, wherever you get your podcast from. Also, check out the show on YouTube. All of our past shows are on there. Clips, shorts, like and subscribe. It's absolutely free. Our socials are at Joe Swiss Tilly on Instagram and Threads and Substack. Also, Joe Tilly's Great Canadian Sports Show on Facebook. Thanks once again to Russ Courtnall for joining us. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. MNP, a leading Canadian national accounting, tax, and business accounting firm. MNP proudly serves and responds to the need of their clients in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, MNP provides a collaborative, cost-effective approach to do business and personal strategies to help people and organizations to succeed across the country and around the world. With local offices in Oshawa, Mississauga, Burlington, and more, their team is here to support you. Visit mnp.ca today to learn more. Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today. Let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678. Joe Tilly here. My wife Penny Claire and I recently took an amazing trip to Egypt and Jordan with Trip Oppo. And here are our top 10 must-dos. Another must-do experience is a luxurious cruise down the Nile River. The ship was elegantly furnished with premium facilities, including a spacious lounge and a swimming pool. The cabins were comfortable, well-appointed, offering panoramic views of the Nile River and the surrounding landscape. I would highly recommend that you book your next trip through Trip Oppo. Call them today. Rooted in 60 years of tradition, Sleepy Hollow is a private golf club with a friendly community of members just minutes from Toronto. With mature trees and rolling fairways, Sleepy Hollow provides a challenging and enjoyable experience for passionate golfers. Enjoy great golf, amazing dining, and a picturesque patio second to none. Visit sleepyhollowcountryclub.com.